They wanted me invisible. So I married the devil himself. At a wedding meant to celebrate love, I watched my ex-fiancé marry my backstabbing best friend, and the entire room pretended I didn't exist. The humiliation was designed to destroy me. But in the hallway, rage burning in my chest, I made a choice that would flip their perfect world upside down. I said yes to a man more dangerous than any of them could imagine. And when I walked back into that ballroom wearing his ring, their smiles died. Some mistakes haunt you. Others, they remake you. Stick around till the end. This story gets darker before it gets better. Drop a like and comment your city so I can see how far this has traveled. The champagne tasted like poison. Isabella Cruz stood at the edge of the grand ballroom of the Astor estate, holding a crystal flute she hadn't sipped from in 20 minutes. Around her, Chicago's wealthiest laughed too loud, clinked glasses too hard, and pretended she wasn't there. Not invisible. Worse. Acknowledged just enough to remind her she was the joke. She shouldn't have come. Everyone knew that. She knew that. But Vanessa Hale, Vanessa Cole now, technically, had sent the invitation herself. Cream cardstock with gold embossing, hand-delivered by a courier who'd made Isabella sign for it like a legal document. You're invited to witness the beginning of forever. Forever. What a lie. Isabella smoothed the front of her black dress, simple and cheap compared to the ocean of silk and diamonds around her. She'd bought it on clearance 3 years ago for a funeral. Fitting, really. Tonight felt like a burial. Is that Isabella Cruz? A woman whispered behind a gloved hand. The one Adrian dumped? Oh my God, she actually showed up. I heard Vanessa invited her as a gesture. You know, to show there's no hard feelings. Laughter, sharp as broken glass. Isabella's fingers tightened around the champagne flute. She imagined throwing it, watching it shatter against marble, watching their smug faces crack the same way. But she didn't, because that's who Isabella Cruz was. The girl who took it. The girl who smiled through humiliation. The girl who believed, stupidly, pathetically, that being kind would somehow earn her a place at the table. It never did. The orchestra swelled. A hush fell over the room. The ceremony was starting. Isabella turned toward the altar, a massive floral installation of white roses and peonies that probably cost more than her rent. Adrian Cole stood at the center, tall and perfect in his custom tuxedo, his dark hair slicked back, his jaw sharp enough to cut. He looked like money. Old money. The kind that didn't ask, it took. 2 years. She'd given him 2 years. He'd given her nothing but lies. The music shifted. The crowd turned. And there she was. Vanessa Hale glided down the aisle in a gown that belonged in a museum. Ivory silk that caught the light like water. A train that went on forever. A veil so delicate it looked like smoke. Her blonde hair was twisted into an elegant updo, her makeup flawless, her smile radiant. She looked like a queen. Isabella felt like dirt. Vanessa's father walked her down the aisle, beaming with pride. When they reached the altar, Adrian took her hand, and the look he gave her, tender, adoring, complete, made Isabella's stomach twist. He'd never looked at her like that, not once. The officiant began. Words about love and commitment and forever. Isabella heard none of it. She was too busy replaying the last conversation she'd had with Adrian 3 months ago in the hallway of his penthouse. You're a good person, Bella, but you're not enough. You don't fit this world. I can learn. No, you can't. And I'm done pretending you can. He'd handed her a check, severance pay, he'd called it, like she was an employee he was letting go. She'd ripped it up in front of him. He'd shrugged and walked away. 2 weeks later, the engagement announcement hit the society pages. Adrian Cole and Vanessa Hale. A merger of empires. A match made in heaven. Except Vanessa had been Isabella's best friend. Her only friend, really. The one who'd held her hand through her mother's death, who'd listened to her cry about her dead-end job, who'd promised they'd always have each other's backs. Until she didn't. The betrayal had been efficient, surgical. One day, Vanessa was texting her about brunch plans. The next, she was in Adrian's bed. Isabella had confronted her once. Just once. Vanessa had smiled. Not apologetic. Not cruel. Just bored. You were never going to keep him, Bella. You know that, right? He needed someone who could stand beside him, not someone he had to carry. That was it. No fight. No drama. Just the truth, delivered like a weather report. And now here they were. The officiant asked if anyone objected. Isabella's throat burned. She could do it. She could stand up, scream, make a scene, ruin everything. But her legs wouldn't move. Because deep down, she knew Vanessa was right. She'd never belonged here. I now pronounce you husband and wife. The crowd erupted in applause. Adrian kissed Vanessa, slow and deliberate, and the room seemed to glow brighter. People cheered. Cameras flashed. Someone popped a bottle of champagne. And Vanessa, mid-kiss, eyes still closed, turned her head just slightly. Just enough. Her eyes opened. Found Isabella in the crowd. And she winked. Not subtle, not hidden. A wink that said, I won. Isabella's vision blurred. Her chest tightened. The applause around her became a roar, deafening and cruel, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. She turned, shoved past a waiter, pushed through the crowd. No one stopped her. No one even noticed. She stumbled into the hallway, gasping, her heels clicking against marble as she fled toward the exit. The corridor was empty, lined with mirrors and gold sconces, and she caught a glimpse of herself, pale, shaking, pathetic. She looked away, kept walking, almost made it to the door. Then she slammed into someone. Hard. Strong hands caught her before she fell, and she looked up into the coldest eyes she'd ever seen. The man was tall, taller than Adrian, broader. He wore a black suit that fit like armor, and his dark hair was slightly too long, falling across his forehead in a way that should have looked careless but didn't. His jaw was sharp, his mouth a hard line, and his eyes, dark, unreadable, pinned her in place. He didn't smile, didn't apologize, just looked at her like he could see straight through her skin. Careful, he said. His voice was low, rough, the kind that didn't ask for attention but commanded it anyway. Isabella stepped back, cheeks burning. Sorry, I wasn't running away? Her breath caught. He tilted his head, studying her. Not the way men usually did. Not hungry, not curious. Clinical. Like she was a problem to solve. I'm not... She stopped. What was the point in lying? Yes, I'm running away. From the wedding? From all of it. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched her with that unnerving stillness. Isabella wiped at her eyes, hating herself for the tears. You should go back inside, the reception's starting. I wasn't invited. Then why are you here? His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Business. Of course. Men like him didn't do anything that wasn't business. Isabella moved to step around him, but his hand shot out, not grabbing, just there. A wall. You're Isabella Cruz. She froze. How do you know that? Everyone in that room knows that. He nodded toward the ballroom. You're the girl Adrian dumped for the blonde. Heat flooded her face. Thanks for the reminder. You're also the only one here who looks like she wants to burn the place down. She laughed. It came out bitter, broken. What gave it away? The fact that you're still standing here. I'm leaving. No, you're not. Her eyes snapped to his. Excuse me? If you were leaving, you'd be gone already. He stepped closer, not threatening, just present, filling the space. You're still here because part of you wants to go back in there and make them hurt the way they hurt you. Isabella's chest tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Who the hell are you? Luca Moretti. The name hit her like a slap. She'd heard it before, whispered in corners, dropped in conversations that ended abruptly when the wrong person walked by. Luca Moretti wasn't just rich. He was dangerous. The kind of man who owned half the city and controlled the other half through fear. People didn't cross Luca Moretti. They disappeared if they did. I know who you are, Isabella said quietly. Good. Then you know I don't waste time. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a card, and held it between two fingers. I have a proposition for you. She stared at the card, plain, white, just a phone number. What kind of proposition? The kind that gets you everything you want. You don't know what I want. His eyes darkened.
Revenge. The word hung between them, heavy and alive. Isabella swallowed. I'm not interested. Liar. I'm leaving. Then leave. He didn't move, didn't lower the card, just waited. And Isabella hated him for it, hated that he was right, hated that she did want revenge, hated that she'd spent the last 3 months drowning in rage and shame and the horrible, gnawing need to make them see her.
What do you want from me? She whispered. Luca's gaze didn't waver. Marry me. The world stopped. Isabella stared at him, waiting for the punchline, the smirk, the laugh. It never came. You're insane, she said. Probably. I don't even know you. You don't need to. Why would you? She shook her head. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. He stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the coldness in his eyes that wasn't cruelty. It was control. You want to walk back into that room and show them you're not broken. I can give you that. Wealth, power, protection, everything they have and more. And what do you get? Does it matter? Yes. He smiled. It wasn't kind. A wife? That's it? That's enough. Isabella's heart pounded. This was insane. This was a trap. This was 1 year, Luca said. Marry me for 1 year, play the part. After that, you're free. And if I say no, then you walk out that door and they win. She flinched because he was right. If she left now, Vanessa won. Adrian won. All of them won. And Isabella Cruz would disappear into nothing. Why me? She asked. Luca's expression didn't change. Because you're angry. And anger is useful. I'm not a weapon. Everyone's a weapon if you know how to use them. She should have slapped him, should have run. Instead, she looked at the card in his hand, then at the ballroom doors, where music and laughter spilled into the hallway. Vanessa's wink, Adrian's indifference, the years of being invisible. Isabella Cruz had spent her whole life being good, being kind, being small. And where had it gotten her? She took the card. Luca's eyes gleamed. Smart girl. I haven't said yes yet. You will. He turned and started walking back toward the ballroom. Isabella stood there, frozen, the card burning in her hand. Then she heard it. Vanessa's laugh, high and bright and victorious. Isabella's jaw tightened. She looked at the card, at the door, at the man who'd just offered her the one thing she'd never thought she'd have, a choice. She followed him. Luca didn't wait for her. He walked like he owned the building, because he probably did. Isabella had to half jog to keep up, her heels clicking against marble, her heart hammering in her chest. Where are we going? She hissed. You'll see. I didn't agree to anything. Not yet. He pushed through a side door that led to a private lounge, plush velvet chairs, a bar made of black marble, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A man stood by the bar, mid-40s, graying at the temples, sharp suit. He looked up when they entered. Sir, he said, I wasn't expecting... Marcus, meet Isabella Cruz. Luca gestured to her like she was an acquisition. My fiancée. Isabella's stomach dropped. Wait. Marcus blinked, then recovered, nodded. Of course. Congratulations. We're getting married, tonight. Isabella's brain short-circuited. Tonight? Problem? Luca asked. Yes, a huge problem. You can't just... I can. He turned to Marcus. Call the judge. I want it done in the next hour. Marcus pulled out his phone without hesitation. Isabella grabbed Luca's arm. He looked down at her hand, then at her face, and for a second she thought he might snap her wrist. Instead, he waited. This is insane, she said. You already said that. Because it is. And yet you're still here. She let go of his arm. I need time to think. You don't have time. Luca glanced at his watch. The reception starts in 15 minutes. If you want to walk back in there as my wife, we do this now. And if I don't? Then you leave, and I find someone else. The casual way he said it, like she was replaceable, like this whole thing was a transaction, should have made her angry. Instead, It made her feel seen, because that's all she'd ever been to Adrian, too. Replaceable. Why does it have to be tonight? She asked. Luca's gaze hardened. Because tonight, they humiliated you. And tonight, you're going to destroy them. Something in his voice, cold, final, sent a shiver down her spine. You don't even care about me, she said quietly. No, he agreed. I don't. Then why are you doing this? For the first time, his expression shifted. Just barely. A flicker of something she couldn't name. Because I can. It wasn't an answer, but it was the only one she was going to get. Isabella looked at Marcus, who was already on the phone, speaking in low, clipped tones. Then at Luca, who watched her with the patience of a predator. She thought about Adrian, about Vanessa, about the wink, about spending the rest of her life knowing she'd been erased. 1 year, she said. Luca's mouth curved. 1 year. And then I'm free. Completely. I want it in writing. Done. And I want, she hesitated, I want them to see. I want them to know. Luca's smile widened. That's the point. Marcus hung up. Judge Morrison will be here in 30 minutes. Good. Luca turned back to Isabella. You'll need a ring. I don't need... He pulled a small black box from his pocket. Isabella stared. You just carry that around? I came prepared. He opened the box. The ring inside was obscene. A diamond the size of a knuckle, set in platinum, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like fire. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. This is too much, Isabella whispered. It's a statement. Luca took the ring out, held it up. Everything about this is a statement. You understand that, right? The second you put this on, you're mine. In their eyes, in the city's eyes, and there's no taking it back. I know. Do you? She met his gaze. Yes. He studied her for a long moment. Then he took her left hand, his grip firm, warm, and slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. There, Luca said. Now you look like you belong. Isabella stared at the ring, at the weight of it, at the way it felt like a chain and a crown all at once. I don't belong anywhere, she said. You do now. The judge arrived exactly 30 minutes later. A woman in her 60s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, who didn't ask questions and didn't seem surprised by any of this. Marcus handed her a folder. She skimmed the documents, nodded. Everything's in order, she said. Shall we begin? Isabella's hands were shaking. Luca stood beside her, perfectly still, perfectly calm. Like this was just another business meeting. Maybe it was. The ceremony took 3 minutes. No vows, no music, no flowers. Just words. Legal. Binding. Do you, Isabella Marie Cruz, take Luca Moretti to be your lawfully wedded husband? Her throat was dry. I do. And do you, Luca Antonio Moretti, take Isabella Cruz to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The judge closed her folder. That was it. Isabella was married. To a stranger. To a devil. Luca turned to her. We should go. Where? The reception. Right. The reception, where Vanessa and Adrian were celebrating, where Isabella was supposed to be invisible. She looked down at her dress. Cheap, plain, wrong. I can't go like this. Luca's eyes flicked over her. You're right. He pulled out his phone, sent a text. 2 minutes later, a woman in a sleek black suit appeared, carrying a garment bag and a makeup case. This is Elena, Luca said. She'll handle it. Elena smiled, professional, efficient. Let's get you ready, Mrs. Moretti. Mrs. Moretti. The name felt like a slap and a gift. Isabella followed Elena into a private dressing room. The woman worked fast, unzipping the garment bag to reveal a dress that made Isabella's breath catch. Midnight blue. Silk. Cut like a weapon. Mr. Moretti has excellent taste, Elena said. Isabella didn't answer. She let Elena strip her out of the funeral dress and into the new one. Let her fix her makeup, darken her eyes, paint her lips red,
let her pin her hair up, sleek and severe. When it was done, Elena stepped back. Perfect. Isabella looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at her wasn't the girl who'd walked into the wedding. She was sharper, colder, dangerous. Thank you, Isabella whispered. Elena smiled. Good luck. What? When Isabella stepped back into the lounge, Luca was waiting. He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time since she'd met him, something shifted in his expression. Better, he said. Just better? His mouth twitched. You'll do. He offered his arm. Isabella hesitated, then took it. His muscles were solid under the fabric, unyielding. Ready? He asked. No. Yes. They walked toward the ballroom. The music was louder now, the reception in full swing. Laughter and champagne and the sound of people who'd never known real pain. Luca stopped just outside the doors. Last chance, he said. You can still walk away. Isabella looked at him, at the ring on her finger, at the man who'd offered her a devil's bargain. No, she said. I can't. Luca's smile was slow, predatory. Good. He pushed open the doors. The ballroom fell silent. Every head turned, every eye locked onto them. Isabella Cruz, no, Isabella Moretti, walked into the room on the arm of the most dangerous man in Chicago, wearing a dress that cost more than her yearly salary and a diamond that could buy a house. She didn't look at the floor, didn't look away. She looked straight at Vanessa, at Adrian, at every single person who'd made her feel small, and she smiled. Luca's hand tightened on hers. Showtime, he murmured. They walked deeper into the room. People stepped back. Whispers started. Shock rippled through the crowd like a wave. Adrian saw her first. His face went white. Then Vanessa. Her perfect smile froze. Luca led Isabella straight to the center of the room, where the newlyweds stood surrounded by well-wishers. He didn't stop until they were face to face. Congratulations, Luca said. His voice was smooth, lethal. Beautiful ceremony. Adrian's jaw tightened. Moretti. Cole. Luca's gaze slid to Vanessa. And the bride. Lovely dress. Vanessa's eyes were locked on Isabella. On the ring. Isabella, she said slowly. What are you... Mrs. Moretti, Luca corrected. His arm slid around Isabella's waist, pulling her close. Possessive. Unmistakable. My wife. The room erupted. Gasps. Murmurs. Cameras flashing. Adrian stared at Isabella like he'd seen a ghost. Vanessa's mask cracked. And Isabella. Isabella felt alive. We got married an hour ago, Luca continued, his voice carrying across the room. Thought we'd stop by and share the good news. An hour ago? Adrian's voice was strangled. Yes, Luca smiled. We didn't want to wait. He looked down at Isabella, and then he kissed her. Not soft, not gentle, possessive, claiming. A kiss that said mine in a language everyone understood. Isabella's heart stopped, then started again, faster, harder. When Luca pulled back, the room was silent. He kept his eyes on hers. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Moretti. Isabella's lips curved. Thank you, husband. The word tasted like victory. The kiss ended, but the shockwave didn't. Isabella could feel every eye in the room burning into her skin. The whispers started low, then grew, a rising tide of disbelief and scandal that filled the ballroom like smoke. She kept her face calm, her smile steady, even though her heart was trying to claw its way out of her chest. Luca's hand stayed firm on her waist, grounding her, claiming her. Shall we dance? He asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. She didn't trust herself to speak, so she nodded. He led her to the center of the floor. The orchestra, caught off guard, stumbled for a moment before switching to a waltz. Luca pulled her close, closer than was proper, and they began to move. Isabella had never been a good dancer. She'd always been too self-conscious, too worried about stepping on toes or looking foolish. But Luca didn't give her a choice. He led with absolute authority, his grip firm, his movements precise, and all she had to do was follow. Breathe, he said. I am breathing. No, you're panicking. I'm not... She caught sight of Vanessa over his shoulder, standing frozen beside Adrian, her face a careful mask that couldn't quite hide the rage underneath. Okay, maybe a little. Don't look at them. Hard not to. Try. She forced her gaze back to Luca. Up close, he was even more intimidating, all sharp angles and controlled power. His eyes were dark, unreadable, and she realized she had no idea what he was thinking. Why did you really do this? She asked quietly. I told you, I needed a wife. That's not an answer. His mouth curved slightly. It's the only one you're getting. You don't trust me. I don't trust anyone. Then why marry me? Because you're useful. His hand tightened on her waist. And because you'll keep your mouth shut. It should have stung, should have made her angry. Instead, it felt honest, more honest than anything Adrian had ever said to her. The song ended. Polite applause scattered through the room, uncertain and weak. Luca didn't let go of her. He kept her close, his eyes scanning the crowd like he was cataloging threats. Then he leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. Adrian's coming. Don't flinch. She barely had time to process the warning before Adrian appeared beside them, his jaw tight, his eyes stormy. Isabella, he said, can we talk? Luca's expression didn't change. No. Adrian's gaze snapped to him. I wasn't asking you. You're asking my wife, which means you're asking me. This is insane. Adrian looked at Isabella, and for the first time in months, she saw something real in his eyes. Confusion. Maybe even hurt. What the hell are you doing? Getting married? Isabella said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Same as you. To him. You don't even know him. I didn't need to know him. I just needed to say yes. Adrian flinched. This isn't you. You don't know what I am anymore. Bella. Mrs. Moretti, Luca corrected, his tone ice cold. And this conversation is over. Like hell it is. Adrian stepped closer, his voice dropping. You think you can just show up here with him and what? Luca's smile was all teeth. Ruin your wedding? Steal your spotlight? Make you look like a fool? He tilted his head. That's exactly what we're doing, Cole. And there's nothing you can do about it. Adrian's hands curled into fists. For a second, Isabella thought he might actually swing. Then Vanessa appeared, slipping her arm through Adrian's with a bright, brittle smile. Darling, she said sweetly, people are watching. Adrian's jaw worked, but he didn't move. Vanessa turned to Isabella and the smile stayed in place, but her eyes were venomous. Congratulations, Bella, she said. I have to say I'm surprised. I didn't think you had it in you. Had what in me? The ambition. Vanessa's gaze flicked to Luca, then back. Though I suppose marrying up is easier than earning it yourself. Isabella's nails dug into her palms. Funny, that's exactly what you did. Vanessa's smile tightened. Adrian and I are a partnership. Is that what you call it? What would you call it? A transaction. The words came out sharper than Isabella intended, and for a second Vanessa's mask slipped. Real anger flashed across her face, hot and raw. Then she laughed. Well, Vanessa said lightly, at least we're both honest about what this is. She glanced at Luca. How much did he pay you, Bella? Or did you negotiate a monthly allowance? Luca moved before Isabella could respond. Just a single step forward, but it was enough to put him between her and Vanessa, his presence a wall of barely contained menace. Careful, he said quietly. Vanessa's smile faltered. You're at my wedding, she said, but her voice wavered. No. Luca's gaze was cold. You're in my city, and you just insulted my wife. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Adrian pulled Vanessa back slightly. Moretti, take your bride and go enjoy your reception, Cole. Luca's tone was pleasant, lethal. Before I decide to make this interesting. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Adrian turned, his hand firm on Vanessa's arm, and walked away. Vanessa went with him, but not before shooting Isabella one last look, hatred wrapped in a smile. As soon as they were gone, Isabella let out a shaky breath. That was pathetic, Luca finished. He turned to her. She's scared. She didn't look scared. She is. They both are. His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. Come on. We're leaving. Already? We made our point. Staying longer is overkill. He was right.
The room was still buzzing, people staring and whispering and pulling out phones to text everyone who wasn't here. The damage was done. Isabella let him lead her toward the exit. As they passed through the crowd, people stepped aside, their expressions ranging from shock to awe to thinly veiled fear. No one tried to stop them. No one even spoke. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. A black car waited at the curb, sleek, expensive, windows tinted so dark they looked like mirrors. A driver stood beside it, older, stone-faced. "Vincent," Luca said, "we're going home." Home. The word sent a jolt through Isabella's chest. She climbed into the car. The interior was leather and silence. And when Luca slid in beside her, the door closing felt final. Vincent pulled away from the curb, and Isabella watched the Astor estate disappear behind them. "Where are we going?" she asked. "My penthouse. I don't have any of my things. They'll be picked up tomorrow." "I didn't agree to that." "You agreed to marry me. That includes living with me. For appearances." "Exactly." Luca's gaze stayed on the window. "If we're married, we live together. People will check, they'll ask questions. And if you're not where you're supposed to be, they'll know it's fake." "It is fake." "Not to them." Isabella bit her lip. He was right. Of course he was right. But the reality of it was starting to sink in. She'd just married a stranger. She was going to live with him, share space with him, pretend to be his wife for a year. She didn't even know what kind of coffee he drank. "Relax," Luca said, still not looking at her. "You'll have your own room, your own space. I'm not interested in playing house." "Then what are you interested in?" "Keeping up appearances. That's all this is." "Right." She looked down at the ring on her finger. It caught the streetlights, throwing sparks of color across the car's dark interior. 1 year. 1 year, he confirmed. The rest of the drive passed in silence. Vincent navigated through downtown Chicago with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. The buildings grew taller, sleeker, and when they finally stopped, it was in front of a tower that looked like it had been carved from glass and steel. "This is it," Luca said. Isabella followed him inside. The lobby was all marble and modern art, and the concierge behind the desk straightened immediately when he saw Luca. "Mr. Moretti, good evening." Luca didn't respond, just walked past, heading for the elevators. They rode up in silence. The numbers climbed, 30 floors, 40, 50, until they finally stopped at the very top. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Isabella stepped out and froze. The space was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the light stretching out like a galaxy. The furniture was minimal, clean lines, dark colors, expensive without being showy. Everything looked deliberate, controlled, like Luca. "Your room is down the hall," he said, nodding to the left. "Second door. There's a closet, a bathroom, whatever you need. And you?" "Other side of the penthouse." "Far enough away?" His mouth twitched. "Plenty." He moved toward a bar in the corner, poured himself a drink. Whiskey. Neat. He didn't offer her one. Isabella walked to the windows, staring out at the city she'd lived in her whole life but had never really seen like this. From up here, it looked different, smaller. "Why did you kiss me?" she asked. Luca glanced at her. "What?" "At the reception. You didn't have to kiss me. You could have just told them we were married." "Would they have believed it?" "Maybe. Maybe isn't good enough." He took a sip of his drink. "People believe what they see, and they saw me claim you." "Is that what that was? Claiming?" "Yes." No hesitation, no softening. Isabella turned to face him. "You don't feel anything, do you?" "Not about this, no." "Then what do you feel about?" For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not emotion, exactly. Just awareness. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said. She wanted to push, to dig, to figure out what the hell was driving this man to marry a stranger just to make a point. But she was exhausted, emotionally, physically, completely drained. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Good idea." She started toward the hallway, then stopped. "Luca?" He looked up. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For tonight." He didn't smile, didn't soften, just nodded. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "This is just the beginning." Isabella didn't know what that meant,
But the warning in his voice was clear. She turned and walked down the hall, finding the second door just like he'd said. Inside was a bedroom bigger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed, walk-in closet, bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the midnight blue dress, the diamond ring heavy on her finger. And for the first time since she'd walked into that wedding, she let herself feel it. The fear, the uncertainty, the horrible creeping realization that she'd just traded one cage for another. Except this time, she didn't know the rules, didn't know the man holding the keys. She pulled out her phone, 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. A dozen texts from people she barely knew, all asking the same thing. Is it true? Did you really marry Luca Moretti? She turned the phone off, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and wondered what the hell she'd just done. Morning came too fast. Isabella woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize, in a bed that wasn't hers, wearing yesterday's makeup smudged across a pillowcase that probably cost more than her rent. For a second, she thought it had all been a dream. Then she saw the ring. Her stomach dropped. She sat up, her head pounding. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept in her dress. Her hair was a mess. She felt like she'd been hit by a truck. A knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she said, her voice rough. The door opened. A woman stepped in, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, efficient looking. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti," she said. "I'm Caroline. Mr. Moretti asked me to help you get settled." Mrs. Moretti. There it was again. "I don't need help," Isabella said. Caroline smiled, polite, professional. "Mr. Moretti insists." Of course he did. "Where is he?" "At the office. He left 2 hours ago." Caroline gestured to the closet. "I've taken the liberty of arranging some basics for you. Your belongings from your apartment will arrive this afternoon." Isabella blinked. "How did you—" "Mr. Moretti provided the address." "Right, because he knew everything." Isabella stood, wobbling slightly. "I need coffee." "Already made, kitchen." Caroline led her out of the bedroom and down the hall. The kitchen was sleek and modern, all stainless steel and marble countertops. A fresh pot of coffee sat waiting, along with pastries and fruit. Isabella poured herself a cup, black, and took a long sip. It was perfect. She hated that. "Mr. Moretti also left this for you," Caroline said, handing her an envelope. Isabella opened it. Inside was a credit card. Black, heavy, her name embossed on the front, and a short note in sharp, precise handwriting. "Buy whatever you need. Don't make me regret this. L." She stared at the card. This was real. This was actually happening. "Is there anything else you need?" Caroline asked. "Yeah," Isabella said. "An explanation." Caroline's expression didn't change. "I'm afraid I don't follow." "Why is he doing this? Why did he marry me?" "I wouldn't know, Mrs. Moretti. Mr. Moretti doesn't share his reasons with staff." "Has he done this before? Married someone out of nowhere?" "No, ma'am. You're the first." "Great." So she was an experiment. Caroline excused herself, leaving Isabella alone in the massive kitchen with her coffee and her spiraling thoughts. She pulled out her phone, turned it on. Immediately it exploded with notifications, texts, calls, emails, social media mentions. Everyone wanted to know. Everyone had an opinion. She scrolled through the messages, her stomach twisting tighter with each one. Then she saw one that made her stop. From Adrian. "We need to talk. Meet me, please." Her finger hovered over the message. Then she deleted it. She didn't owe him anything. Not anymore. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Caroline helped her unpack when her things arrived, though things was generous. Isabella didn't own much. A few boxes of clothes, some books, a laptop. It all looked pathetic next to the luxury of the penthouse. By evening, she was exhausted again. She'd tried on half the clothes Caroline had stocked in the closet, designer labels she couldn't pronounce, dresses that cost more than she used to make in a month. Everything fit perfectly. Of course it did. She was standing in front of the mirror wearing a simple black dress she'd found when she heard the front door open. Luca was home. Her heart rate picked up. She stepped out into the hallway.
He was standing near the entrance, pulling off his jacket, his tie already loosened. He looked tired, which was strange because she'd never imagined him being capable of tiredness. "Hey," she said. He glanced at her. "How was your day? Weird, yours? Productive? That's it? Just productive?" "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something human?" His mouth twitched. "I'm not good at human." "I'm starting to notice." He walked past her, heading for the bar, poured himself the same whiskey as last night. "We need to talk," Isabella said. "About? This? Us? What happens now?" Luca turned, leaning against the bar. "What happens now is you play your part. We attend events together. You look happy. You don't embarrass me. And in 1 year, we're done." "That's it?" "That's it." "What about, I don't know, ground rules?" "Like what?" "Like," she hesitated, "what if I meet someone during the year?" His eyes darkened. "You won't. You can't control that." "Yes, I can." He took a sip of his drink. "You're my wife, in public, in private, doesn't matter. For the next year, you're mine. No one else touches you. No one else even looks at you the wrong way." "That's not fair." "Fair doesn't exist in my world." "And what about you?" she challenged. "Same rules?" He smiled, cold, amused. "I don't cheat." "Why not?" "Because I don't make promises I can't keep." The certainty in his voice sent a chill through her. "This isn't a real marriage," Isabella said. "It is to everyone watching. But not to us." "No," he agreed. "Not to us." She didn't know why that stung, but it did. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Isabella." She stopped, turned. Luca set down his glass. "You did well today. Settling in, not running. Did you think I would?" "I wasn't sure." "I made a deal," she said. "I keep my promises too." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe. "Good," he said, "because tomorrow we go public." "What does that mean?" "It means the world's about to know who you are." His gaze held hers. "And once that happens, there's no going back." Isabella's throat tightened. "I know," she said. "Do you?" "Yes?" He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." She turned and walked back to her room, but sleep didn't come easy, because she knew he was right. Tomorrow, everything would change, and she wasn't sure she was ready. The morning arrived with Caroline knocking on her door at 7 a.m. sharp. "Mr. Moretti wants you ready by 9, she said. Isabella groaned. "Ready for what?" "Press." That woke her up. She showered, let Caroline style her hair and makeup, and put on the outfit that had been laid out, a cream-colored suit that was elegant without being flashy, paired with heels that added 3 inches to her height. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked powerful, like she belonged. Luca was waiting in the living room when she emerged. He wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, and he looked every inch the billionaire he was. "Ready?" he asked. "No." "Good. Let's go." They rode the elevator down together. Vincent was waiting with the car, and when they stepped outside, the cameras were everywhere, flashing, shouting, a wall of reporters and photographers crushing in from all sides. Isabella froze. Luca's hand found hers, steady and firm. "Smile," he murmured, "and don't let go." She forced her lips to curve. The questions came fast and brutal. "Mr. Moretti, is it true you got married? Isabella, how long have you been together? What about Adrian Cole? Is this revenge?" Luca ignored them all. He guided her through the crowd with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, his hand never leaving hers. They reached the car. Vincent opened the door. But before she could get in, one reporter shoved a microphone in her face. "Isabella, did you marry him for money?" The question hit like a punch. Luca's jaw tightened, but Isabella turned, looked the reporter dead in the eye. "I married him because I wanted to," she said clearly. "Any other questions?" The reporter blinked, caught off guard. Luca's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. He guided her into the car, and Vincent shut the door behind them. As they pulled away, Isabella let out a shaky breath. That was perfect, Luca finished. You're a natural. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He glanced at her. You handled that well. Thanks. Don't let it go to your head. She almost laughed. They drove in silence for a while. Then Isabella asked the question that had been burning in her mind since yesterday. What do you really get out of this? Luca's expression didn't change. I told you. A wife. Yeah, but why? Why me? Why now? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because people think they know me, think they can predict what I'll do. Marrying you changes that. So I'm a distraction. You're a statement. What kind of statement? His eyes met hers. That I do what I want, when I want, and no one can stop me. It should have made her angry. Instead, it made her understand him a little better. Luca Moretti wasn't cruel. He was controlled, and control was the only thing he trusted. Where are we going? She asked. Lunch. With my attorney. Why? Because you need to sign the contract. Right. The contract. The thing that made this real. The car pulled up to a restaurant. Expensive, exclusive, the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Luca helped her out, and they walked inside together. A man stood waiting near a private table in the back. 50s, graying, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Moretti, he said, extending a hand. I'm Richard Grayson, your husband's attorney. Nice to meet you, Isabella said. They sat. Richard pulled out a folder, thick with papers. This is the prenuptial agreement, he said. It outlines the terms of your marriage, the financial arrangements, and the conditions of dissolution after 1 year. Isabella's stomach clenched. Walk me through it, she said. Richard did, slowly, methodically. The terms were clear. 1 year. Full financial support during that time. Housing, living expenses, an allowance. In exchange, Isabella would attend events, maintain appearances, and keep the marriage confidential. At the end of the year, she'd receive a settlement. Enough to start over. Enough to disappear if she wanted. And if I break the contract? Isabella asked. You forfeit everything, Richard said simply. Luca watched her, waiting. Isabella picked up the pen, signed her name. Welcome to the family, Richard said with a thin smile. Isabella didn't feel welcome. She felt trapped. But maybe that was the point. The ink on the contract was still drying when Isabella's phone started ringing. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Luca said without looking up from his own phone. It could be important. It's not. The phone kept ringing. Isabella hesitated, then silenced it. Richard gathered the papers, sliding them back into his briefcase with practiced efficiency. I'll file these today. Congratulations again, Mrs. Moretti. He left without waiting for a response. Isabella sat back in her chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. It had only been 2 days since the wedding, Adrian's wedding, and her entire life had been dismantled and rebuilt in someone else's image. You're thinking too much, Luca said. How would you know? Your face. You get this look. What look? Like you're about to bolt. She wanted to deny it, but he wasn't wrong. I'm fine, she said instead. Liar. A waiter appeared with menus. They ordered, or rather Luca ordered for both of them without asking what she wanted. Isabella should have been annoyed, but she was too tired to care. When the waiter left, Luca leaned back, studying her with that unnerving intensity he seemed to carry everywhere. You're handling this better than I expected, he said. What did you expect? Tears, regret, maybe a dramatic exit. Sorry to disappoint. I'm not disappointed. His gaze didn't waver. I'm curious. About what? Why you're really here? Isabella frowned. You know why. Revenge. That's what you told yourself. But revenge doesn't last 2 days without cracking. He tilted his head slightly. So what is it? What are you running from? The question landed like a blade between her ribs. I'm not running, she said. Everyone's running from something. Even you? His smile was cold. Especially me. Before she could push further, her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Vanessa. "We need to talk." This isn't over. Isabella's jaw tightened. Luca's eyes flicked to her phone. Her? Yeah. Block the number. I can handle it. I didn't ask if you could. I'm telling you to block it. She's not going to stop just because I ignore her. No, she'll stop when she realizes you're untouchable. Luca's voice was flat, final. And she will realize it, eventually. Isabella wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that Vanessa wasn't the type to back down, that she'd find another way to dig her claws in. But the truth was, she didn't know what Vanessa would do, and that scared her more than she wanted to admit. The food arrived. They ate in silence. The meal was perfect, expensive, carefully plated, the kind of thing Isabella had only seen in magazines. She barely tasted it. When they finished, Luca paid without looking at the check and stood. "Come on," he said. "We have somewhere to be." "Where?" "You'll see." She was getting really tired of that answer. They left the restaurant and climbed back into the car. Vincent pulled into traffic smoothly, navigating the city with the kind of confidence that came from years of practice. Isabella stared out the window, watching Chicago slide past. The buildings, the people, the noise. It all felt distant now, like she was watching her old life through glass. "Does it ever get easier?" she asked quietly. Luca glanced at her. "Does what get easier?" "Pretending." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're not pretending, you're adapting." "What's the difference?" "Pretending is temporary. Adapting is survival." She looked at him. "Is that what you do? Survive?" "Every day." There was something raw in his voice, just for a second. Then it was gone, locked back behind that impenetrable wall he wore like armor. The car slowed, then stopped in front of a building Isabella didn't recognize. Modern, sleek, the kind of place that screamed money and power. "What is this?" she asked. "Your new office." She blinked. "My what?" Luca was already getting out of the car. Isabella scrambled to follow. Inside, the lobby was all glass and marble, with a receptionist who smiled too brightly when she saw Luca. "Mr. Moretti, good afternoon." He didn't acknowledge her, just walked straight to the elevators. Isabella hurried to keep up. "Luca, what the hell is going on?" "You need something to do," he said as they stepped into the elevator. "Sitting around the penthouse looking miserable isn't going to convince anyone this marriage is real." "So you got me a job?" "I got you a position. There's a difference." The elevator climbed. When it stopped, they stepped out into a floor that looked like it had been pulled from a design magazine. Open workspace, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture. A woman approached, late 20s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. "Mr. Moretti," she said. "Everything's ready." "Good." He gestured to Isabella. "This is my wife, Isabella. She'll be working here as a consultant." "Consultant for what?" Isabella asked. "Philanthropy," the woman said with a professional smile. "We handle charitable donations, event planning, community outreach." "Mrs. Moretti, I'm Sarah Chen. I'll be showing you around." Isabella looked at Luca. He met her gaze with that same unreadable expression. "You're serious," she said. "Completely." "I don't know anything about philanthropy." "You'll learn. This is insane." "No, this is strategic." He checked his watch. "I have a meeting. Sarah will get you settled." And just like that, he was gone. Isabella stood there, staring at the spot where he'd been, feeling like she'd just been dropped into the deep end of a pool without knowing how to swim. Sarah cleared her throat politely. "Shall we start the tour?" What choice did she have? She followed Sarah through the office. The space was impressive, state-of-the-art everything, a team of people who looked competent and intimidating, projects that actually seemed to matter. "This is your office," Sarah said, opening a door to reveal a corner space with windows overlooking the city. Isabella stepped inside. The desk was pristine. The chair looked like it cost more than her car used to. "I don't understand," she said. "Why is he doing this?" Sarah's smile was polite but distant. "Mr. Moretti believes in keeping his people occupied. I'm not his people. I'm his wife. With all due respect, Mrs. Moretti, in his world, those are the same thing." The words should have stung. Instead, they felt uncomfortably accurate.
Sarah left her with a stack of files to review: grant applications, charity proposals, event budgets. Isabella sat at the desk and stared at them, her mind spinning. This was real. All of it.
The marriage, the contract, the office. She'd agreed to 1 year, but she was starting to realize that 1 year in Luca Moretti's world might change her in ways she couldn't undo. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Vanessa. Ignoring me won't make this go away, Bella. We both know what you did. Isabella's blood ran cold. What she did? She hadn't done anything. Vanessa was the one who'd stolen Adrian. Vanessa was the one who'd betrayed her. She started typing a response, then stopped, blocked the number instead. Luca was right. Engaging would only make it worse, but the text lingered in her mind like poison. What the hell was Vanessa talking about? The rest of the afternoon blurred together. Sarah introduced her to the team, walked her through ongoing projects, explained her role. Isabella nodded and smiled and pretended she understood, all while her brain screamed that this was too much, too fast. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, she was exhausted. She found Vincent waiting downstairs. Mr. Moretti asked me to take you home, he said. Where is he? Still in meetings. Of course he was. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Isabella leaned her head against the window, watching the city lights blur past. When they arrived, she thanked Vincent and headed upstairs. The penthouse was empty, silent. She kicked off her heels, poured herself a glass of wine from Luca's bar. He probably wouldn't notice, and sank onto the couch. For the first time in days, she was alone with her thoughts. And they weren't kind. She'd married a man she didn't know, signed a contract that bound her to him for a year, walked away from everything familiar and stepped into a world where she didn't belong. And for what? Revenge? Was it worth it? She thought about Vanessa's face at the reception, the shock, the anger, the crack in that perfect mask. Yeah, it was worth it. She took another sip of wine. Her phone buzzed. Not Vanessa this time. Adrian, please, Bella, just talk to me. She stared at the message. Part of her, the part that had loved him, that had believed in him, wanted to respond, wanted to hear what he had to say. But the rest of her? The rest of her remembered the check, the dismissal, the way he'd looked at her like she was nothing. She deleted the message, finished her wine, and went to bed. When she woke the next morning, Luca was in the kitchen. It was the first time she'd seen him there. He stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded, drinking coffee and scrolling through his phone. He looked almost human. Morning, Isabella said cautiously. He glanced up. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Join the club. She poured herself coffee, adding cream and sugar. Luca watched with faint amusement. What? She asked. Nothing. Just didn't peg you for sweet coffee. There's a lot you don't know about me. True. He set down his phone. How was yesterday? The office? Overwhelming. You'll get used to it. Will I? You don't have a choice. She leaned against the counter. Why did you really give me that job? I told you. No. The real reason. Luca studied her for a long moment. Then he said, because idle hands cause problems, and I don't need you causing problems. That's it? That's it. She didn't believe him, but she didn't push. They drank their coffee in silence. It should have been awkward. Strangely, it wasn't. We have an event tonight, Luca said eventually. Isabella groaned. Another one? Charity gala, black tie, high profile. Do I have to? Yes. What if I say no? Then you break the contract and lose everything. Right, the contract. What time? She asked. 7. Caroline will help you get ready. Of course she will. Luca's mouth twitched. You don't like her. I don't trust people who are that efficient. You should. Efficiency is useful. So is honesty. Honesty is overrated. Isabella shook her head. You're impossible. And yet here you are. Here I am, she echoed. He finished his coffee, rinsed the cup, and grabbed his jacket. I'll see you tonight, he said. Luca? He paused at the door. Why me? She asked again. Really? Why did you choose me?
For a second, she thought he might actually answer. Then he said, "Because you were convenient," and left.
Isabella stood alone in the kitchen, his words echoing in her mind. Convenient. That's all she was to him. A tool. A means to an end. She told herself it didn't matter, told herself she'd known that from the start, but it still hurt. The day passed slowly. Isabella tried to focus on work, reviewing grant proposals, sitting in on meetings, pretending she knew what she was doing, but her mind kept drifting. To Adrian, to Vanessa, to Luca, to the life she'd left behind and the life she was building now. By the time Caroline arrived at 5 to help her get ready, Isabella was a bundle of nerves. "Deep breath, Mrs. Moretti," Caroline said as she laid out the dress, a stunning emerald gown that hugged every curve. "I don't know if I can do this," Isabella admitted. "Yes, you can." Caroline's voice was firm. "You walked into that wedding reception and stopped the room. You can handle a charity gala." "That was different." That was anger. "Then use it again." Isabella met her eyes in the mirror. "What if I run out of anger?" Caroline smiled. "Then you fake it, just like everyone else." 2 hours later, Isabella stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing herself. The emerald dress fit like it had been made for her. Her hair was swept up, elegant and severe. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she belonged in Luca's world, even if she didn't feel like it. Luca was waiting when she emerged. He wore a tuxedo that made him look even more dangerous than usual, his dark eyes sharp as they swept over her. "You clean up well," he said. "So do you." His mouth curved. "Let's go." The gala was held at one of Chicago's most exclusive hotels. The ballroom was massive, dripping with crystal chandeliers and filled with people who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Isabella's stomach churned. Luca's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. "Remember," he said quietly, "you're mine. Act like it." She nodded. They walked in together. And once again, the room noticed. Heads turned, whispers started. People stared with barely concealed curiosity. But this time, Isabella didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, smiled, let Luca guide her through the crowd like she'd done it 1,000 times. "Mr. Moretti," a man approached, older, silver-haired, powerful-looking. "Good to see you." "Senator," Luca said smoothly, "this is my wife, Isabella." The senator's eyes widened slightly. "Your wife? Congratulations!" He extended a hand. "James Carlyle." Isabella shook it. "Pleasure." "The pleasure's mine. I have to say, Luca, you've been holding out on us." Luca's smile was all teeth. "I like to keep some things private." They made small talk. Isabella smiled and nodded, letting Luca take the lead. But she was watching, learning. This was his world. These were his people. And she was starting to understand the game. They moved through the room, stopping to talk to donors, politicians, business moguls. Everyone wanted a piece of Luca, and by extension, a piece of her. She played the part, the devoted wife, the charming companion, and she was good at it, better than she'd expected. Then she saw them, across the room, Adrian and Vanessa. Her heart stopped. Luca felt her tense, his hand tightened on her waist. "Breathe," he murmured. "They're here." "I know." "Did you know they'd be here?" "Yes." She turned to look at him. "You planned this." "I planned for the possibility." "Lucas, smile, Isabella. They're watching." She forced her lips to curve. Adrian and Vanessa were making their way through the crowd, and it was only a matter of time before they crossed paths. Isabella's pulse hammered. Then Vanessa was there, perfect in a white gown, Adrian beside her looking uncomfortable. "Luca," Vanessa said with a bright smile. "Isabella, what a surprise." "Is it?" Luca's tone was pleasant, lethal. "This is a charity event. We donate quite a bit." "Of course you do." Vanessa's eyes slid to Isabella. "You look lovely, Bella." "Thank you. Marriage suits you." "It does." The tension was thick enough to cut. Adrian cleared his throat. "Moretti, I didn't realize you'd be here." "I'm full of surprises," Luca said. "Apparently." Adrian's gaze flicked to Isabella. "Can we talk?" "Privately." "No," Luca said before Isabella could respond. Adrian's jaw tightened. "I wasn't asking you. You're talking to my wife.
which means you're asking me. This is ridiculous. This is reality. Luca's smile was sharp. Accept it. Vanessa put a hand on Adrian's arm. Darling, let's not make a scene. I'm not making a scene. I just want to talk to an old friend. We're not friends, Isabella said quietly. The words hung in the air. Adrian flinched. Bella? Mrs. Moretti, Luca corrected. This is insane, Adrian said. You can't just what? Isabella interrupted. Move on? Find someone better? She stepped closer to Luca, her hand finding his. You did. So did I. Vanessa's smile was frozen in place. Adrian looked like he'd been slapped. Enjoy your evening, Luca said smoothly. We have people to see. He guided Isabella away before either of them could respond. Her hands were shaking. You did well, Luca said. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Don't. Not in this dress. Despite everything, she almost laughed. They found a quieter corner of the room. Luca handed her a glass of champagne. Drink, he said. She did. The bubbles helped settle her stomach. Why did you bring me here? She asked. If you knew they'd be here. Because you need to stop being afraid of them. I'm not afraid. Yes, you are. His gaze was steady. And as long as you are, they have power over you. So this is what, exposure therapy? Something like that. She took another sip of champagne. You're a bastard. I've been called worse. I bet. His mouth curved into something almost like a real smile. For the rest of the night, they stayed close, talked to donors, smiled for cameras, played the perfect couple. And slowly, Isabella started to feel it. Not the fear, the power. The realization that she wasn't the girl who'd been thrown away anymore. She was someone new, someone stronger, someone who could stand in a room full of people who once dismissed her and make them see her. By the time they left, she was exhausted but exhilarated. In the car, Luca loosened his tie. You were good tonight, he said. Thanks. I mean it. You're learning fast. I had a good teacher. He glanced at her. I'm not a teacher. Then what are you? Practical. She laughed. Actually, laughed. Luca's expression softened, just slightly. What? She asked. Nothing, just, you should do that more. Do what? Laugh. It suits you. The comment caught her off guard. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was different this time, less cold, almost comfortable. When they reached the penthouse, Isabella kicked off her heels immediately. Thank God that's over, she muttered. There'll be more, Luca warned. I know. She headed for her room, then paused. Luca? He looked up from his phone. Thanks, she said. For tonight, for pushing me. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Get some sleep, Isabella. She did, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she didn't dream about what she'd lost. She dreamed about what she was becoming. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm Isabella hadn't expected. Mornings meant coffee with Luca, brief, mostly silent exchanges before he disappeared to his office and she headed to hers. Days were filled with grant proposals and charity events, learning the language of philanthropy from Sarah and the team. Evenings brought galas, dinners, fundraisers, an endless parade of faces and handshakes and smiles that didn't quite reach anyone's eyes. And through it all, Luca was there. Not warm, not comforting, but present. A constant shadow at her side, his hand at her back, his voice in her ear reminding her to breathe, to smile, to play the part. She was getting good at it, too good maybe. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything shifted. Isabella was reviewing a proposal for a women's shelter when Sarah knocked on her office door. Mrs. Moretti, you have a visitor. Isabella frowned. I'm not expecting anyone. She says she's an old friend. Every muscle in Isabella's body tensed. She knew before Sarah even said the name. Vanessa Cole. Isabella's stomach dropped. Tell her I'm busy. I did. She said she'd wait. Of course she would. Isabella set down her pen, her hand suddenly cold. She'd managed to avoid Vanessa since the gala 3 weeks ago. No calls, no texts, no confrontations. She should have known it wouldn't last. Fine, Isabella said.
Send her in. Sarah hesitated. Are you sure? I can call security. It's fine, just give us 10 minutes, then interrupt. Sarah nodded and disappeared. Isabella stood, smoothing her skirt, trying to calm the storm in her chest. The door opened. Vanessa walked in like she owned the place. Designer dress, perfect hair, that same confident smile that had once made Isabella feel safe. Now it just made her sick. Bella, Vanessa said warmly, your office is lovely. What do you want, Vanessa? Straight to business. I see marriage has changed you. Vanessa settled into the chair across from Isabella's desk without being invited. You look good. Expensive. Thanks. Now leave. I just want to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Don't we? Vanessa crossed her legs, studying her nails. I think we have quite a bit to discuss, actually. Isabella's jaw tightened. You have 5 minutes. Always so dramatic, Vanessa sighed. Look, I know things ended badly between us. Badly? You slept with my fiancé. Ex-fiancé. Technically, he was already pulling away from you when we... When you what? Decided to betray me? Decided I didn't matter? Vanessa's smile faltered, just slightly. It wasn't personal, Bella. How the hell was it not personal? Because it was never about you. Vanessa leaned forward. It was about what Adrian needed, what I needed. You were sweet, but you were never going to fit into his world. I did you a favor. Isabella laughed. It came out bitter, broken. A favor. Yes, you would have been miserable with him. And you think I'm happy now? I think you're richer. Vanessa's eyes flicked to the ring on Isabella's finger. Significantly richer, so maybe you should be thanking me. Get out. Not yet. Vanessa's expression hardened. I came here to warn you. Warn me about what? About Luca Moretti. Isabella went still. Vanessa continued, her voice dropping. Do you have any idea who you married, what he's capable of? I know exactly who I married. Do you? Because the man you're playing house with isn't just some wealthy businessman, Bella. He's dangerous. People who cross him don't just lose money, they disappear. That's a rumor. Is it? Vanessa pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, then turned the screen toward Isabella. Daniel Reeves, journalist, started investigating Moretti's business dealings 2 years ago. 3 months later, he vanished, never found. Isabella stared at the photo. A man in his 40s smiling at the camera. That doesn't prove anything, she said. There are more. At least 5 people over the last decade who got too close, asked too many questions. Vanessa pocketed her phone. Luca Moretti is not a good man, Bella. And whatever game you're playing with him, you need to stop before you get hurt.
Why do you care? Because despite everything, I don't want to see you dead. How generous. I'm serious. Vanessa stood. Walk away, get a divorce, take whatever settlement he offered, and disappear. No. Bella, I said no. Isabella's voice was ice. You don't get to steal my life and then pretend to care about my safety. Whatever you think you're doing here, it's not working. Vanessa's expression shifted. The concern dropped away, replaced by something colder. Fine, she said. I tried to help. But when this blows up in your face, and it will, don't come crying to me. I wouldn't dream of it. Vanessa turned toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Adrian misses you. Isabella's chest tightened. He asks about you, Vanessa continued. Wonders if you're okay, if you're happy. Tell him I'm fine. Are you? The question hung between them. Isabella met Vanessa's eyes. I'm better than I've ever been. It might have been a lie, but it felt good to say. Vanessa smiled, sad, almost pitying. We'll see, she said. Then she left. Isabella sank into her chair, her hands shaking. Sarah appeared in the doorway moments later. Everything okay? Yeah, Isabella said. Just ghosts. Sarah nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Isabella tried to focus on work for the rest of the afternoon, but Vanessa's words kept circling back. Dangerous. People disappear. She'd heard the rumors, of course. Everyone had. Luca Moretti wasn't just wealthy.
He was feared, the kind of man whose name made people nervous, but he'd never been violent with her, never even raised his voice. Still, she didn't really know him, did she? By the time she got home that evening, her head was pounding. Luca was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of whiskey, his jacket discarded, his tie loosened. He looked up when she entered. "Rough day?" he asked. "You could say that. Want to talk about it?" She almost said no, almost brushed it off, but something made her stop. "Vanessa came to see me," she said. Luca's expression didn't change. What did she want? "To warn me about you." Now he smiled, cold, amused. "Did she?" "She said you're dangerous, that people who cross you disappear." "And what did you say?" "That I know exactly who I married." Luca studied her for a long moment. Then he set down his glass and stood. "Come here," he said. Isabella hesitated, then walked toward him. He didn't touch her, just looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "Do you want the truth?" he asked. "Yes." "I'm not a good man, Isabella. I've done things, terrible things, to get where I am. And if someone threatens me or what's mine, I deal with it, permanently if necessary." Her heart hammered. "Have you killed people?" "Not personally, but I've given the order." The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "Because you asked. And because if you're going to be my wife, even for just a year, you deserve to know what you're standing next to." Isabella's throat was tight. "Should I be afraid of you?" Luca's gaze softened, just barely. "No, you're not a threat, and I don't hurt people who aren't threats." "That's not exactly comforting." "It's the truth." She believed him, which was maybe the scariest part. "Vanessa's trying to get in your head," Luca said. "She wants you scared, wants you to run. Don't give her that." "I'm not running." "Good." He picked up his glass again. "Because we have a dinner tomorrow night. Business associates. Important." More smiling and nodding? "Exactly." Isabella sighed. "Is this what the rest of the year looks like?" "More or less." "Great." Luca's mouth twitched. "You're getting better at it." "At what?" "Being cynical. It suits you." "I learn from the best." He actually smiled at that. A real one. It was gone in a second, but she saw it. The next evening, Isabella found herself in yet another expensive restaurant, wearing yet another expensive dress, sitting across from a man named Marcus Trent, who owned half the real estate in downtown Chicago. Luca sat beside her, relaxed and confident, guiding the conversation with practiced ease. Marcus was in his 60s, sharp-eyed and calculating, with a wife 20 years younger who looked bored out of her mind. "So, Mrs. Moretti," Marcus said, cutting into his steak, "how are you finding married life?" "It's an adjustment," Isabella said carefully. "I bet. Luca's not the easiest man to live with." "I manage," Marcus laughed. "I'm sure you do. You'd have to be tough to keep up with him." Luca's hand found Isabella's under the table. A warning. She squeezed back. Reassurance. The conversation moved to business, real estate deals, market trends, investments. Isabella listened, occasionally nodding, letting Luca take the lead. Then Marcus said something that made her stomach drop. "I heard Cole Enterprises is struggling. Word is Adrian overextended on that downtown project." Luca's expression didn't change. "Is that so?" "Banks are getting nervous. If he can't secure additional funding in the next quarter, the whole thing could collapse." Isabella's chest tightened. Adrian was failing. "Unfortunate," Luca said smoothly, "but not surprising. Cole's always been better at spending money than making it." Marcus laughed. "True enough." He glanced at Isabella. "Must be strange for you, though, watching your ex-fiancé implode." "Not really," Isabella said. Her voice was steady. "His success was never my concern." "Fair enough." Marcus raised his glass. "To new beginnings." They all drank, but Isabella's mind was racing. Adrian was losing everything. And part of her, the part that had loved him once, felt a flicker of sympathy. The rest of her felt nothing. After dinner, they said their goodbyes. Vincent drove them home in silence. In the elevator, Luca finally spoke. "You okay?" "Yeah, just processing." "The thing about Adrian?" "Yeah." "You feel bad for him?" "It wasn't a question." A little, she admitted. Don't. Luca's voice was flat. He made his choices. Now he's living with them. I know, it's just...
What? He wasn't always like this. When I first met him, he was different, kinder. People change. Or maybe he was always this way and you just didn't want to see it. Isabella looked at him. Is that what you think? That I was blind? I think you saw what you wanted to see. We all do. The elevator doors opened. They walked into the penthouse together. Isabella kicked off her heels, poured herself a glass of wine. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why do you hate him so much, Adrian? You barely know him. Luca was quiet for a moment. Then, I don't hate him. I just don't respect men who throw away good things because they're too stupid to see what they have. Is that what he did? Yes. And you think I was a good thing? Luca met her eyes. I think you're useful. That's better than good. She should have been insulted. Instead, she laughed. You really don't know how to give a compliment, do you? Not really. It's kind of impressive. His mouth curved. I try. They stood there, drinks in hand, the city glittering beyond the windows. It felt almost normal. I'm going to bed, Isabella said eventually. Isabella. She turned. Luca looked like he wanted to say something, then changed his mind. Sleep well, he said instead. You too. But sleep didn't come easy. Isabella lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning. Adrian was failing. Vanessa had come to warn her. Luca had admitted to giving kill orders. And somehow, she was still here, still playing this game, still pretending to be someone she wasn't sure she recognized anymore. The next few weeks blurred together. More events, more smiles, more performances. But something was changing. Isabella noticed it in small ways. The way Luca's hand lingered on her waist a second longer than necessary. The way he asked about her day and actually listened to the answer. The way he looked at her sometimes. Like he was seeing something he hadn't expected. She told herself it didn't mean anything. This was a contract, a transaction, nothing more. Then came the night everything cracked open. They'd attended a gallery opening, another charity event, another crowd of wealthy strangers. Isabella had worn a black dress that made her feel powerful, and Luca had stayed close all night, his presence a constant anchor. On the drive home, he was quiet. Too quiet. You okay? Isabella asked. Fine. You're lying. He glanced at her. How would you know? Because you get this look, like you're somewhere else. He didn't deny it. Back at the penthouse, he poured himself a drink. Then another. Isabella watched, concerned. Luca, do you ever regret it? He asked suddenly. Regret what? This, marrying me. The question caught her off guard. Sometimes, she admitted. Do you? I don't know. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. Isabella had never seen him like this, vulnerable, almost broken. She sat beside him, not touching, just there. What happened? She asked quietly. Anniversary. Of what? My sister's death. Isabella's breath caught. I didn't know you had a sister. Had, past tense. His voice was hollow. She died 8 years ago. Car accident, drunk driver. Luca, I'm so sorry. She was 23, had her whole life ahead of her. He looked at Isabella, his eyes raw. And I couldn't save her. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I was supposed to pick her up that night, got caught up in a meeting, told her to take a cab. His hands curled into fists. If I'd just... Stop. Isabella's hand found his. You can't do that to yourself. Why not? Everyone else does. Who's everyone? My mother, my father before he died. They blamed me, said if I'd been there, they were wrong. Were they? Isabella squeezed his hand. Yes, they were grieving and they needed someone to blame, but it wasn't your fault. Luca stared at their joined hands. Why did you marry me? He asked. Really, not the revenge bullshit. The real reason. Isabella swallowed. Because I was tired of being invisible, tired of being nothing. You were never nothing. That's not how it felt. I know. His thumb brushed across her knuckles.
I know exactly how that feels.
Something shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding. Two broken people, clinging to each other in the dark. Thank you, Luca said quietly. For what? For not running, for staying. I signed a contract. Fuck the contract. His eyes met hers. Thank you for being here, right now. Isabella's heart hammered. This was dangerous. This was crossing a line they'd both agreed existed. But she didn't pull away. You're welcome, she whispered.
They sat there in silence, hands still joined, the city lights flickering beyond the windows. And for the first time since this whole thing started, Isabella wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was becoming something more than a transaction. Something real, something terrifying. The thought should have scared her. Instead, it felt like relief. Like finally, after months of pretending, she could breathe. Morning came too soon. Isabella woke to find a note on her nightstand.
Had to leave early. Breakfast is in the kitchen. L. She smiled despite herself. In the kitchen, she found fresh coffee, pastries, and a single red rose in a vase. Her chest tightened. This wasn't part of the contract. This was something else. She touched the petals gently, wondering what the hell she was getting herself into. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Adrian's company is going under. Bankruptcy filing expected next week. Thought you should know. No signature. But Isabella knew who it was from. Luca. Always watching, always 3 steps ahead. She should have felt manipulated. Instead, she felt protected. And that scared her more than anything. Because somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about revenge. It had become about survival. About finding someone who understood the darkness. About 2 people who'd been broken by the world, finding something in each other that almost felt like hope. Isabella finished her coffee, stared at the rose, and wondered what the hell happened next. The news of Adrian's bankruptcy hit the papers 3 days later. Isabella saw it on her phone during her morning coffee. Headlines screaming about the fall of coal enterprises, about failed investments and angry creditors, about a golden boy who'd bet everything and lost. She waited to feel something. Victory. Satisfaction. The sweet burn of revenge finally realized. Instead, she just felt tired. You saw, Luca said, appearing in the doorway. He'd showered already, his hair still damp, dressed for another day of meetings and power plays. Yeah. And? Isabella set down her phone. And nothing. It's done. He studied her, reading the blankness in her expression. You're not happy. I thought I would be, but it just feels... She searched for the word. Empty. Luca poured himself coffee, leaning against the counter. Revenge usually does. Then why did you help me get it? Because you needed to learn that yourself. His eyes met hers. People spend years chasing payback, thinking it'll fix something inside them. It never does. But you can't tell someone that. They have to feel it. So this was a lesson? Everything's a lesson if you're paying attention. Isabella shook her head. You're infuriating. I know. He took a sip of coffee. But I'm right. She couldn't argue with that. Her phone buzzed again, this time a call. Adrian. Her stomach clenched. Luca saw the name on the screen. You going to answer? I don't know. Then don't. But her finger was already moving, accepting the call before she could stop herself. Hello? Bella? Adrian's voice was rough, broken. Please don't hang up. What do you want, Adrian? I need to see you, just once, please. Luca's expression darkened. I don't think that's a good idea, Isabella said. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. He sounded desperate. There's something I need to tell you, something you deserve to know. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to hang up, to let him drown in whatever mess he'd made. But the part of her that had loved him once, the part that remembered late nights talking about dreams, about futures they'd never build, hesitated. One meeting, she heard herself say. Public place. And I'm bringing my husband. Adrian's breath caught. Bella, those are the terms. Take them or leave them. Silence. Then, okay. Tomorrow, the cafe on Michigan Avenue. Noon. Fine.
She hung up. Luca was staring at her. What? She asked defensively. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Is it? Because when he tries to manipulate you, when he tries to worm his way back into your life, that becomes my problem. He won't. You don't know that. And you don't know him. Luca's jaw tightened. I know men like him. Men who've lost everything and are looking for someone to catch them. Don't let it be you. It won't be? Isabella, I need closure, Luca. Real closure. Not just watching his life fall apart from a distance. She stood, meeting his eyes. I need to look him in the face and know that I'm done, that I've moved past this. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Luca nodded. Fine, but I'm coming with you. I already said you were. And if he tries anything, you'll do what? Break his jaw? Luca smiled, cold, at minimum. Despite everything, Isabella almost laughed. The next day, they arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early. Luca chose a table near the back, positioning himself so he could see the entire room. You're being paranoid, Isabella said. I'm being prepared. There's a difference? Not in my world. Adrian walked in at noon exactly. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his expensive suit rumpled like he'd slept in it. When he saw them, something crumbled in his expression. He approached slowly, like he was walking to his own execution. Bella, he said quietly. Luca. Luca didn't respond, just watched him with cold, predatory eyes. Adrian sat down, his hands shaking slightly. Thank you for meeting me. You have 5 minutes, Isabella said. Start talking. He flinched at her tone, then took a breath. I'm sorry for everything, for how I treated you, for choosing Vanessa, for being too stupid to see what I had until it was gone. Is that why you called? To apologize? No. I called because you deserve to know the truth. Isabella's pulse quickened. What truth? Adrian's eyes darted to Luca, then back to her. Vanessa didn't seduce me. I didn't just fall for her. Then what happened? She planned it. All of it. His voice dropped. She'd been watching us for months, studying you, studying me. She knew my weaknesses, knew the business was struggling, knew I was desperate for connections. Isabella's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying she targeted me deliberately, not because she loved me, because she wanted what you had. I didn't have anything. You had me, and she couldn't stand it. Adrian's hands curled into fists. She wanted to prove she could take whatever she wanted, that you were nothing compared to her. Luca leaned forward, and you went along with it. I was weak, I was stupid, Adrian's voice cracked. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud to admit I was failing. Your company? Isabella asked. Everything. The downtown project was hemorrhaging money. My father's investors were pulling out. I was drowning. He met her eyes. Vanessa promised connections, promised her family would help if I chose her. So you did. Yes, and it was all a lie. They never helped. They just watched me fall. Isabella felt like she'd been punched. All of it, the betrayal, the humiliation, the pain, had been calculated. Orchestrated. Not passion, not even cruelty, just cold, deliberate destruction. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you deserve to know you didn't fail. I did. And Vanessa used that to destroy both of us. Both of us? Adrian laughed bitterly. She's divorcing me, filed papers last week. Turns out I'm not useful anymore now that the money's gone. Luca's expression didn't change, but Isabella saw something flicker in his eyes. Satisfaction. I'm sorry that happened to you, Isabella said quietly, but it doesn't change anything between us. I know, Adrian's voice broke. I just needed you to know that it wasn't your fault, that you were always enough, more than enough. And I was too much of a coward to see it. Tears pricked Isabella's eyes. Not for him. For the girl she'd been. The one who'd believed love meant sacrifice. That being small made you safe. Thank you for telling me, she said. But we're done here. Adrian nodded. He stood, looking at her one last time. Be happy, Bella. You deserve it." Then he walked away. Isabella watched him go, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not closure, exactly. Understanding. "You okay?" Luca asked. "Yeah, I think I am." "Want to tell me what you're thinking?" She turned to him. "I'm thinking that I spent 2 years loving someone who was never really there, and that maybe the best thing he ever did was let me go." Luca's hand found hers across the table. "He's an idiot." "Agreed." She squeezed his fingers. "But I'm done being angry about it." "What are you going to do now?" Isabella smiled. "Live." They left the cafe together, stepping into the bright afternoon sunlight. For the first time in months, Isabella felt light, like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't realize was there, and someone had finally cut it loose. That evening, back at the penthouse, Isabella found herself standing at the windows, watching the city lights flicker to life. Luca joined her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "To closure," he said, handing her one. "To moving forward," she corrected. They drank. "Can I ask you something?" Isabella said after a moment. "Sure." "What happens at the end of the year?" Luca was quiet. Then, "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know anymore." "Neither do I." It was the most honest he'd ever been with her. Isabella set down her glass. "When we started this, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted. Revenge, power, a chance to show everyone I wasn't nothing. And now? Now I'm not sure any of that matters." She turned to face him. "I spent so long trying to be someone I thought I should be. Adrian's perfect girlfriend, Vanessa's loyal friend, and I lost myself completely. You're finding yourself now. Am I? Or am I just becoming someone else? Your wife, Mrs. Moretti." She gestured around the penthouse. "This isn't my life. These aren't my things. I don't even know who I am without all of this." Luca stepped closer. "Then figure it out." "How?" "By choosing. Not because someone tells you to, not because you think you should, but because you want to." "Is that what you do?" "Every day." "And what have you chosen?" His eyes held hers. "You." Isabella's breath caught. "What?" "I chose you. That night at the wedding. Not because you were convenient, not because you were useful." His hand came up, cupping her face. "Because when I looked at you, I saw someone who was done being invisible. Someone who was ready to burn the whole world down just to be seen." "That's not love, Luca." "No, it's not." His thumb brushed her cheek. "But maybe it's something better, something real." Her heart was hammering. "What happens when the year is up?" "I don't know, but I know I don't want you to leave." "I don't want to leave either." The admission hung between them. Then Luca kissed her. Not for show, not for cameras or witnesses, just for them. Isabella kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. This was dangerous. This was breaking every rule they'd set. But she didn't care, because somewhere in the last few months, between the performances and the pretending, something real had grown. Something messy and complicated and entirely theirs. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "What are we doing?" Isabella whispered. "I have no idea." "That's not comforting." "It's honest." She laughed. Actually laughed. "We're going to screw this up," she said. "Probably." "You're supposed to tell me we won't. I'm not good at lying to you." "Since when?" "Since I started giving a damn." Isabella pulled back, looking at him. Really looking. This man who'd offered her revenge and given her something else entirely. This man who was cold and calculating and somehow, impossibly, the first person in years who'd seen her as more than a supporting character in someone else's story. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good. Fear means it matters." "Does it matter to you?" "More than I thought possible." She kissed him again, slower this time, softer. And in that moment, Isabella realized something. She'd spent so long trying to be loved by people who would never see her that she'd missed the person who'd been looking all along. Not at who she should be, at who she was. Broken, angry, imperfect, and somehow, enough. The weeks that followed were different, softer around the edges. Less performance, more reality. They still attended events, still smiled for cameras. But now when Luca's hand found hers, it wasn't for show. It was because he wanted to touch her. Because somewhere in the pretending, they'd both stopped acting. Isabella threw herself into work at the foundation, approving grants for women's shelters and youth programs, using the Moretti name for something that actually mattered. She started a mentorship program for young women from low-income neighborhoods, remembering what it felt like to have nothing and no one. Luca watched her come alive, and something in him shifted too. He started coming home earlier, started asking about her day and meaning it, started letting his walls down, piece by careful piece. It wasn't perfect. They fought about stupid things, whose turn it was to choose dinner, why he worked too much, why she kept rearranging his meticulously organized desk. They disagreed about money, about boundaries, about how much of themselves to show the world. But that was the point. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, messy, human, and it was theirs. One night, about 2 months before their contract anniversary, Isabella woke to find Luca's side of the bed empty. She found him in the living room, standing at the windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Can't sleep?" she asked. He turned. "Did I wake you?" "No." She joined him at the window. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just thinking." "About?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My sister, Maria." It was the first time he'd said her name out loud since that night months ago. "Tell me about her," Isabella said softly. Luca took a sip of his drink. She was the good one, the one who actually gave a damn about people. She wanted to be a doctor, help kids in underserved communities. He smiled, but it was sad. She used to tell me I was wasting my life chasing money when I could be doing something that mattered. She sounds like she was smart. She was. Smarter than me, anyway. His jaw tightened. The night she died, she'd been volunteering at a clinic on the south side, called me around 10, said she was done, asked if I could pick her up. Isabella's chest ached. She knew where this was going. I was in a meeting, a stupid, pointless meeting about a real estate deal that didn't even go through. His voice cracked. I told her to take a cab, said I'd see her at home. Luca. The driver was drunk, ran a red light, hit her car head on. He drained the whiskey. She died instantly. That's what they told me. Like that was supposed to make it better. Isabella took his hand. It wasn't your fault. Everyone says that. Because it's true. Is it? He looked at her, and his eyes were raw. Because I've replayed that night 1,000 times, and every time I see the same thing. If I just left the meeting, if I'd just been there, she'd still be gone. Isabella squeezed his hand. Maybe not that night. Maybe not that way. But you can't live your whole life in the what-ifs, Luca. It'll destroy you. It already has. No, it hasn't. She turned to face him fully. You built an empire. You help people through your foundation, even if you won't admit it. You gave me a chance when I had nothing. That's not destroyed. That's survival. Survival isn't living. Then start living. She cupped his face. Maria wouldn't want you carrying this. She'd want you to be happy. How do you know? Because anyone who loved you enough to call you for a ride loved you enough to want you whole. Luca's eyes closed. A single tear slid down his cheek. Isabella had never seen him cry before. She pulled him close, and he wrapped his arms around her like she was the only thing keeping him upright. I miss her, he whispered. I know. Every day. I know. They stood there holding each other in the darkness, two broken people learning that maybe being broken together was enough. The next morning, Luca was quieter than usual. But there was something lighter about him, too, like a weight had been lifted. Over breakfast, he said, I want to start a scholarship in Maria's name for students who want to go into medicine. Isabella smiled. I think that's perfect. Will you help me set it up? Of course. He reached across the table, took her hand. Thank you. For what? For listening. For not running when I showed you the worst parts. Those aren't the worst parts, Luca. Those are the real parts, and they're beautiful. He shook his head. You're the only person who's ever thought that. Then everyone else is an idiot. He laughed, actually laughed, and Isabella felt something settle in her chest, something warm and sure. This was love. Not the pretty version in movies. The messy, complicated, sometimes ugly version where you saw someone's scars and didn't flinch. The version where you chose each other. Every single day. 3 weeks before their contract expired, Isabella came home to find an envelope on the kitchen counter. Her name in Luca's handwriting. Her heart stopped. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single piece of paper. The contract expires in 3 weeks. After that, you're free to go. No obligations, no strings. The settlement will be transferred to your account as agreed. But if you want to stay, not because you have to, but because you choose to, meet me at the Astor Estate on Friday night, 8 p.m. Whatever you decide, thank you for the last year. It changed me in ways I didn't think were possible. L. Isabella read it 3 times, then she cried. Not from sadness, from the weight of finally having a choice that was entirely hers. She spent the next 3 days thinking. Walking the city, sitting in parks, watching people live their ordinary lives. She thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, broken, invisible, desperate for scraps of affection from people who didn't see her worth. She thought about the woman she'd become, stronger, sharper, someone who'd learned that being alone was better than being small. And she thought about Luca, about the way he'd seen through her from the start, the way he'd never asked her to be anything but exactly who she was, the way he'd given her a choice when everyone else in her life had just taken. By Wednesday, she knew what she wanted. But first, there was something she needed to do. She called Vanessa. The phone rang 4 times before Vanessa answered. Bella? Her voice was cautious, surprised. We need to talk, Isabella said. In person. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not asking. Silence. Then, fine. Where? The coffee shop on State Street, tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll be there. Isabella hung up. The next morning she arrived early, ordered coffee, waited. Vanessa walked in exactly at 10, looking tired but still put together. She sat across from Isabella without a word. Thanks for coming, Isabella said. I'm surprised you called. So am I. Isabella took a sip of coffee. I wanted to tell you something. What? I forgive you. Vanessa blinked. What? I forgive you. For Adrian, for the betrayal, for everything. Bella, I'm not doing this for you, Isabella interrupted. I'm doing it for me because I'm tired of carrying anger, tired of letting what you did define who I am. Vanessa's composure cracked. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. But I'm giving it anyway. Why? Because holding on to it was killing me. Isabella leaned forward. You spent years trying to prove you were better than me. Smarter, prettier, more worthy. And I let you. I believed you. Bella, but I don't anymore. Because I finally figured out what you never did. Worth isn't something you take from other people. It's something you give yourself. Vanessa's eyes were wet. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear it, but I am. I was jealous and cruel, and I destroyed the only real friendship I ever had. I know. Can you ever... Vanessa's voice broke. Can we ever be friends again? Isabella thought about it, really thought about it. Then she shook her head. No, but I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you figure out that being cruel doesn't make you strong, and I hope someday you forgive yourself. She stood. Vanessa looked up at her, tears streaming down her face. I really am sorry. I believe you. Isabella put money on the table for the coffee. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. She walked out without looking back, and with every step she felt lighter. Friday came faster than she expected. Isabella spent the day at the foundation, tying up loose ends, making sure everything would run smoothly whether she stayed or left. Sarah gave her a knowing look when she said goodbye. Whatever you decide, Sarah said, you've built something real here. Don't forget that. I won't. At 6 p.m., Isabella went home. Caroline was waiting with a garment bag. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring this, she said. Inside was the midnight blue dress from that first night, the one that had made her feel powerful. Isabella smiled. She showered, did her makeup, let Caroline help with her hair. When she looked in the mirror, she saw the same woman from a year ago, but different, stronger, sure. At 7:30, Vincent drove her to the Astor estate, the same ballroom where this had all started, where she'd watched Adrian marry Vanessa, where she'd felt smaller than she'd ever been. Now, walking through those doors, she felt different. Not because of the dress or the ring or the name, because she'd learned the hardest lesson of all, that her worth had never been determined by who loved her. It had always been there, waiting for her to see it. Luca stood at the center of the empty ballroom, wearing the same tuxedo from their first wedding night. He turned when she entered, and the look on his face, vulnerable, hopeful, terrified, took her breath away. "You came," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I wasn't sure." Isabella walked toward him, her heels echoing in the empty space. "You gave me a choice. You deserved one. No one's ever done that before. Then everyone before me was an idiot." She stopped in front of him. "I could leave right now, take the money, start over somewhere else." "You could. I could find someone easier, someone who doesn't have emotional baggage and control issues." Luca's mouth curved. "You absolutely could. But I don't want to." His breath caught. "No? No." She took his hands. "Because you saw me when I was invisible. You gave me power when I felt powerless, and you never once asked me to be anything but myself." "Isabella, let me finish." She swallowed hard. "I'm not staying because of the money or the name or the life you've given me. I'm staying because somewhere in all the pretending, I fell in love with you, the real you, not the perfect version, the messy, damaged, impossible version." Luca pulled her close, his forehead against hers. "I don't know how to do this. A real relationship, real feelings." "Neither do I." "We're going to mess it up." "Probably. It's going to be hard." "I know. But I love you," he said. "I don't know when it happened or how, but I do. I love you." Isabella kissed him, deep and sure, and in that ballroom where she'd once been humiliated, she chose herself, chose love, chose risk, chose the terrifying, beautiful uncertainty of building something real with someone who'd seen her at her worst and stayed anyway. When they finally pulled apart, Luca reached into his pocket. "I have something for you," he said. He pulled out a small box. Not the ring from before. That had been for show. This was different. Inside was a simple gold band, elegant, understated, real. "Marry me again," he said. "Not for show, not for revenge. Just because you want to." Isabella laughed through her tears. "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only one I've got." "Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Again. For real this time." He slid the ring onto her finger next to the diamond, and Isabella realized something profound. Sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one who never lets you fall. It's the one who sees you broken on the ground and offers you a hand instead of judgment. The one who says, "I'm broken too. Let's be broken together." They held each other in that empty ballroom, two people who'd started as strangers and become something neither of them expected. Not perfect, not healed, but choosing each other anyway. 5 months later, they stood in a small chapel with only a handful of people watching: Marcus, Sarah, Caroline, Vincent, and a few others who'd become real friends in the chaos. No press, no cameras, no performance. Just two people choosing each other. When the officiant asked if she took Luca to be her husband, Isabella didn't hesitate. "I do." And when Luca said the same, his voice steady and sure, she knew this time it was real. They left the chapel hand in hand, stepping into a future they'd build together. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. Isabella never saw Adrian again. Heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to Portland, started working for a nonprofit. She hoped he found whatever peace he was looking for. Some stories didn't need endings, just distance. Vanessa sent her a message 6 months after their coffee shop conversation. Just 2 words. "Thank you." Isabella didn't respond, but she didn't delete it either. Forgiveness didn't mean friendship. It just meant freedom. The foundation grew beyond what Isabella had imagined. She hired a full staff, expanded to 3 cities, helped thousands of women find their footing after trauma. The Maria Moretti Scholarship sent its first class of students to medical school, and Isabella cried when she saw Luca's face at the ceremony. He still ran his empire, still made the hard calls and the impossible decisions. But he came home now, made time for quiet dinners and lazy Sundays, and moments that mattered more than any deal. They fought, they laughed. They built a life that was imperfect and real and entirely theirs. Some nights, Isabella would wake to find Luca at the windows staring out at the city. She'd join him, and they'd stand in comfortable silence, two people who'd learned that you didn't need words to understand each other. "What are you thinking?" she'd ask. "That I'm grateful." "For what?" "For you, for this, for the fact that you chose to stay." "Every day," she'd say, "I choose you every day." And she meant it, because in the end, that was the real lesson. Love wasn't a lightning bolt or a grand gesture. It was a choice, made over and over, in big moments and small ones, when it was easy and when it was hard. It was choosing to see someone's scars and not flinch, choosing to hold them when they broke, choosing to build something together even when you had no idea what you were doing. Isabella had started this journey angry and broken, desperate for revenge against people who'd made her feel worthless. She thought power came from making them see her, from proving she was more than they thought. But real power, she'd learned, came from seeing herself, from deciding that she mattered, not because someone else said so, but because she believed it. The girl who'd walked into that wedding a year ago wouldn't recognize the woman she'd become. And that was the point. Growth wasn't pretty. It was messy and painful, and sometimes it meant burning down everything you thought you knew. But on the other side of that fire was something better, something real. A life built on choices, not circumstances. On strength, not surrender. On love that was earned and fought for and chosen every single day. Isabella Cruz, Isabella Moretti now, for real, had been erased once. But she'd rewritten herself. Not as someone's girlfriend, not as someone's wife, as herself. Just herself. Flawed and fierce and finally free. And that was more than enough. That was everything. Late one night, nearly 2 years after that first wedding, Luca found her at the windows again. "Still thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Always." "About what?" She leaned into him. "About how strange life is. How one moment you're invisible and the next you're here. How pain can become power if you let it." "Regretting anything?" "Not a single thing." She turned in his arms. "You know what the funny part is?" "What?" "I spent so long thinking I needed revenge to feel whole, needed to watch them suffer to heal. Turns out I just needed to stop giving them space in my head." Wise woman. "I learned from experience." She kissed him softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For being the first person who didn't ask me to be smaller. You were never small, Isabella. You just hadn't learned how big you could be." And standing there in the city lights, wrapped in arms that felt like home, Isabella understood the final truth. She'd been searching for someone to complete her, someone to make her whole. But wholeness wasn't something you found in another person. It was something you built inside yourself, brick by brick, choice by choice, until you looked in the mirror and recognized the person staring back. Love wasn't the destination. It was just a companion for the journey. And she'd found a good one, the best one. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. And he'd chosen her the same way she'd chosen him. Completely. Imperfectly. Honestly. That was enough. That was everything.